Hi, I'm Mark Dickson from Memorial Sloan Kettering. I need no introduction, but there it is. I'm happy to congratulate SARC on 20th anniversary. And I was also thinking that the studies are numbered sequentially. So this is the 41st clinical trial, which is also quite an achievement, I think. So SARC041 is a phase 3 randomized double-blind study of Abema versus placebo in patients with advanced dedifferentiated liposarcoma. SARC is the sponsor, coordinating center, and holds the IND, and Eli Lilly provides funding support as well as the investigational agent. So just a quick review for this group. It's one of the most common diseases that we treat. Dedifferentiated liposarcoma often arises in the retroperitoneum. Primary treatment for this is surgery, but relapses are unfortunately frequent even after R0 or R1 resection. And our systemic therapy options, although there are a fair number at this point, are of modest efficacy. Even drugs relatively recently approved in this space, like eribulin and trabectedin, have low response rates and modest progression-free survival. We've been interested in targeting CDK4 in this disease for a long time, since it's known to be an oncogene that's nearly always amplified in D-diff liposarcoma and can be targeted. So on the right, that you can see that if you shut down CDK4 with siRNA, you can prevent tumor growth. This work has been a long time coming. I remember treating the first patients with Palbociclib on the phase 1 study, which opened in 2004 while I was a fellow. The phase 2 study we opened with Palbociclib in 2010, the phase 2 of Abemaciclib in 2016, and the phase 3 of Abema now finally opening in 2019. And this is SARC041. So to summarize briefly the phase 2 data, there are 3 separate phase 2s that have been done, all single-arm, non-randomized, single-institution studies involving 30 to 60 patients. And you can see that in terms of primary outcomes, median progression-free survival is in the range of 4.5 months with Palbociclib and about, 7 months with Abemaciclib. The drugs are different in a couple of important ways. The main way Abema is different is that it targets CDK4 somewhat more than CDK6, so you get somewhat less myelosuppression, and you also get a bit more GI toxicity, possibly from off-target effect on CDK9. But most interestingly with Abema, because you don't need to interrupt it for a week to recover from the neutropenia, you can dose it every day continuously and potentially hit the target better. These are the Kaplan-Meier curves from the phase 2 studies, which have been published. You can see Palbociclib on top and Abemaciclib on the bottom, which is interesting in that there's a bit of a tail on the curve. You can see the numbers are small, but the curve goes out now to over 4 years. So there are at least some patients with stable disease or a few partial responders who remain on drug for several years, which is a promising observation, and we think provides grounds for the phase 3 study. So, and here are the they're more like geyser plots, but they're sort of waterfall plots where most of the numbers go up. But you can see that the number of patients who respond to Palbociclib is relatively small, but the proportion where the bars are below 0 is much higher with Abemaciclib. So the objectives for the phase 3 are to determine the progression-free survival of patients treated with Abema versus placebo. Secondary objectives are response rate by RECIST 1.1, as imperfect as it is, and I'll determine the progression-free survival for patients who cross over to Abema after initial randomization to placebo. Overall survival is also an endpoint. Patients who are eligible with recurrent or metastatic dedifferentiated liposarcoma, pure well-diff disease is excluded. There needs to be progression of disease by RECIST 1.1 in the 6 months prior to study enrollment to exclude those D-diff lipos that sometimes have an indolent natural course. Importantly, any number of prior systemic therapies is allowed, so you can use this in the 8th line. You can also use this in the 1st line, which is sometimes a nice option for patients, for example, who have a small asymptomatic recurrence in the retroperitoneum. Adequate performance status, organ function, and age greater than 18. So patients with advanced D-diff lipo are stratified by no versus 1 or more prior systemic treatments, randomized 1-to-1 double-blind fashion to Abema versus placebo. Scans are every 6 weeks. If the scan shows progression, the patient is unblinded. If they were on placebo, they cross over to Abema. So everyone has the opportunity to receive the investigational agent. I sort of describe this as Abema now versus Abema later when I'm discussing it with patients. The sample size is to treat 108 evaluable patients, and the statistics are summarized here, which I won't belabor. Happy to report that 9 centers have opened the study to enrollment. They're all listed here, and I thank all the investigators at each of these sites who've put a lot of patients onto the study. We have 53 patients enrolled, so we're about halfway there. Since activating the study during the pandemic, this is quite an achievement, I think, and we hope that within the next year we'll be able to finish the study. Big thank you to Eli Lilly for funding. Thank you to SARC as well, and the study team who's really been outstanding, and to all the investigators. And this is our contact information if you have any potential referrals or questions about the study.